Wide Web. Welcome back to the Hangin With Web Show. I'm GW Pomichter. Thank you so much for logging on, tuning in, clicking on a link, however you got here. It really doesn't matter to us how you got here. What matters to us is that you stay. Hit subscribe, smash, that's what the kids are, smash the bell. I don't even understand what that means.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a mouse. Just click on the bell. Get notified every single day after 2 p.m. when we go live with another great creative artist. We are here at the Foxwood Wine Company in the O'Galley Arts District of Melbourne, Florida, and we're hanging out right now with comic creator, journalist, actor. Really, this guy does a lot. And I don't know if he sleeps or not, but we're hanging out with our good friend Josh Whitener. Josh, how are you?
Nice.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. It's a
wow, you've been busy.
I've been really busy.
You have been really busy.
Yes.
We'll just, for those of our friends out there that don't know it, Josh actually writes for HomeTown News here along the east central Florida coastline. That's, I think it's worth 19 papers now?
I believe so. It's up there.
19 papers from about Daytona all the way down to Vero.
Yep.
And all local papers, which is great. You get to cover some really cool
I cover a lot
stuff.
of things around Brevard County, and it's a dream job, honestly. It's one that I studied journalism in college, and coming from like a creative writer to a journalist, it just kind of like gave me rules to follow, but also allows me to tell a story in my articles.
And we need that.
Yeah. So
creative writers need rules. Without them, really, things get out of hand. So from coming from that background and getting those rules established in journalism, okay, now we understand that you have recently been doing some acting.
I have.
Locally. You did some acting in Jake Estrada's Bocas
I did.
film?
Yes. And how that came about was he was looking for a location for a pivotal scene. It was in a church.
Yeah.
My father's a Lutheran minister, so I happened to meet him at a comic shop, and he talked about it, and I was like, you know what, let me ask my dad. Let's see if I can, because he was having a really hard time with people agreeing to shoot a movie there. So long story short, they graciously agreed to have that film shot there, and I was like, okay, you got your location.
Awesome.
About a week after that, he gives me a text and he says, listen, I had an actor who had some personal issues and he can't, continue the film. Would you like to play a role? I said, yes. No acting experience whatsoever, but it's just one of those things where I thought it's an opportunity, grab it, see what you can do with it.
Yeah.
I played Detective Robert Heel, who is a sort of, he's a complicated guy. And as a writer,
Good characters usually are.
yeah.
Good characters.
As a writer, I had to get into the character. He gave me the script, a little bit of detail about the character, sort of a corrupt, down-and-out cop who makes some pretty horrible decisions. And I felt a little kinship with him, so I had to sort of develop.
Don't ask.
Yeah, I had to sort
of. It
of.
happens. Sometimes the dark side has an appeal.
So I write. I've written some pretty dark characters, but I needed to get a little bit more background to this character. So what I did was I sort of made up a past for him. It was very method. I spent weeks just kind of getting into this mindset of who this character was and why he would make these decisions. And so when I shot the scenes, I just went for it. I just played pretend, because when I write too, it's all about just playing pretend at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I got some pretty good praise. I haven't seen any of the footage.
He got really good praise. We were at IndieCon last week, and we were talking with a good friend who I know our audience knows, Chuck Fresh, who is the voice of Sirius XM Radio, was running IndieCon here in Melbourne, and we were talking about Josh and Josh coming on the show, and he referred to you as, and I'm going to quote this right, Brevard County's own Jared Leto. That's pretty good stuff.
That's a good goal to aspire to.
It is, really, because Jared is known for that, bringing that character almost literally to life in front of you.
And I'm working on creating a band, and that's
band?
going to be it. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow. Okay, because that wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Because journalism, first of all, I want to remind everybody out there, and we don't get to talk to other journalists too often. I'm kind of it. So this is fun.
And we share a kinship with that. We both worked for HomeTown News at one point.
Yeah,
so,
I was 04, 05 to 08.
Yeah, OG.
Man. And writing for a weekly, and everybody thinks it's kind of chill, you only come out on Fridays. I banked, and I still have my files, I banked 400 byline stories.
Wow.
That doesn't include, the crime report. It doesn't
Yeah.
include all the stuff that you have to do every week.
I know.
400 byline stories in 3.5 years.
It's crazy. I mean, but it's totally doable. It makes sense to me.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it is really, and I can remember the first, because it was my first professional byline. I had an internship across at the dailies. I had done things like that, but that was my first professional byline. And I actually remember the story because it was so awesome. 400 bylines later, I remember my first professional byline. It was actually covering an older couple that was running charitable donations and food packaging and things like that in downtown. And I remember sitting there and I think I read my name 700 times over and over again, just saying, "Oh my God, it's a byline! It's awesome!"
Definitely.
And here we are now. In addition to your acting, and in addition to the writing everybody else's stories, because you have to write all about the community,
that's true,
right?
Yeah.
You do your own writing.
I do.
Actually, you have a comic series that you're working on.
I do, and it's coming out late summer is what we're shooting for.
Awesome.
My artist, Brian Wilson, is incredible. I met him through a Facebook group. I can't remember the name, but it's like a independent creators group. This Trickster series I've had in my mind for about 12 years, and I've done so many different things with it. It started out as a novel, and then it sort of transitioned to a screenplay. And then in that screenplay format, I kind of said, it's very visual. I can always see this as like a series. Let's make it into a comic book. Problem is, I don't know how to draw. I can't draw. So
preaching to the choir.
I look.
I'll paint you pretty pictures in words.
Yeah.
But then you take away the words, and they're like, "Hey, there's a blank page," and I'm like, "Okay, stick figure," and
Right. So
awful.
I put a post out there saying, I'm looking for an artist that would collaborate with me on this series, and I didn't really ask for. I didn't really detail what I was looking for in the art. I knew I needed a lot of shadows. I was going to keep it black and white. And Brian was the first one to respond, and he sent me a small picture of something he was working on. I believe it's something. Like an homage to The Doors, This Is the End,
yeah.
So he had like a little kind of panel scene, and I thought, that's perfect. So I got in contact with him. Brian lives up in Missouri, Kansas City. He started drawing when he was 5. His influences, a lot of Frank Miller, a lot of Simon Beasley and Tom McFarlane. He can do, some of the pages that you'll see in the series are almost a Sin City looking type of deal. Cool. I've never really had to be really specific about what I want in a panel. I can give him just, hey, this is what I'm looking for, and he meshes perfectly. It's my fiance says that it's the perfect partnership for this series, and I totally agree. So I have to give a lot of credit to him and how he's made.
Well, let's let them know, because it's coming this summer. We're going to throw links down below so people can follow it and keep up with where you are. What is Trickster about? Trickster
is it's about. I basically took incidences that I experienced in life, and I made a little universe. It takes place a few years back in the past, about 2008, but the country is in a way different spot than it is. Alternative future, alternative history, whatever you want to call it. The Bush administration's in its 3rd term. The country's kind of in this really desolate place where the black market is the open market.
Calm down. GW's out there going, yes.
Yeah, right.
Calm down. Didn't happen.
But I base characters off of myself, off of my friends. I have the main character is Jack Augustine. He's based off of myself. I have a secondary character named Cy Langston, who's based off my best friend of like 20 years, Jason Mueller. And I just had these stories. I created little incidences that had happened to me in the past, and I hyped them up to 11 and put a fictional spin on them.
That's kind of cool.
It's a crime noir. It's a detective story. The first issue is a 2-part. It's 2 issues. It starts off with a murder, like most crime stories do, of an ex-girlfriend of Jack's that he feels somewhat responsible for, and you kind of see the connections of what his life is like and how he's connected to this underworld.
It's really funny. Yeah. My first novel's a noir, and novella, actually.
Got it.
My first novella is a noir, and that it was a meshing of 2 stories. It was one was a coming-of-age story. And I had realized that in all of the old Raymond Chandler stories, things like that, there was always a hard-boiled detective, the noir detective, but there was never an origin. We never knew where he came from.
Right.
He just walks into the room and he's already jaded and he's ruined.
Yeah.
But I was like, how do you get that way? So that was just the cool thing. And then what's interesting is that my first visual in my head was like a Frank Miller.
Yeah,
I
think he kind of.
screenplay.
Yeah, I think he kind of gives like in comics like that iconic images
Really
of
does.
black and whites.
He
Really, yeah.
Because comics is one of the few places where noir can pop again.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, for those of you out there that are familiar with the art form, noir is a genre that got its name from the stark shadows and lighting that was done in film.
Right.
So film noir is where that comes from. They were just considered hard-boiled detective
Right.
novels or whatever back before that. When they went on to film, they shot them in stark shadow. And so you would see things like, you know, the Sam Spade logo shining in the shadow, hitting the
Right.
wall. And those were noir concepts. As we moved into color film and photography, the noir concept, we tried to tell the same stories. They didn't have the same impact.
Yeah.
But when you do it in comics, when Frank Miller does it in his Sin City, or when you're doing it with these,
Right.
we saw a lot of these pictures of black and whites.
Yeah.
It gives you that contrast again, and it puts the noir back in the genre.
Absolutely. And I'm also working with a cover artist named Tim Sealing, and he's from the UK,
Awesome.
and sort of southwest England. And I think it's Exington he lives in. But anyway, I've known him from fan sites from way back, 10, 12 years
That's
ago.
awesome.
And I just loved his artwork. He's sort of like a Dave McKean, you know, very realistic visuals, but it's kind of a collage of different things. And he just does this amazing work. If you go to www.tim-sealing.co.uk, you can see some of he's done comic covers before, and I mean, he's just amazing. It was an honor to kind of like.
We're going to drop that link down below so you guys can find
Right.
it. Okay, so we're getting questions from back behind the camera.
Yeah.
Apparently, we're just having too much fun.
That's
chatting,
fine,
so,
yeah.
Okay, whatever. We'll do the journalist part of this. Okay. What avenues are you looking at for publishing? Are you looking at doing this
Self-publishing,
independently?
but I want to get it together, and I have a couple of publishers in mind to send it to.
Awesome.
I'm not expecting anything out of this, honestly. It's a project for me, and that's how it started. And I just want to kind of get it together and get it out there on some stands and see what happens with it.
Yeah,
Honestly,
it's a
it's
passion project.
a very passionate project for me. But I've had a lot of fun doing it. It's been kind of hard to compact a story. I'm very detailed, but to compact a story into about 25 pages of panels has been pretty difficult. But we've gotten it.
What do you see for this story as it unfolds? Do you see additional comic issues?
I have
Do you see,
I
what are
have
you-
at least 100 storit 100 issues that I have in my mind that can be doable. This is it's a very character-driven series, and it has the potential to cover an entire arc for this main character and also the secondary characters. I mean, it's one of those things that's it's not something where I'm putting it out saying, let's see what happens and I'll continue the story. I have the story. The story's there. It just needs to be told, and that's all it is. So,
By the way, guys, if you're a creative writer, if you're any kind of creative mind, that is always the just. It just needs to be told. Hardest thing in the world. Take the discipline to sit at your keyboard. Take the discipline to bring it out of here
Right.
and put it on the page. Which brings me to kind of like my final question. You've been balancing now being a journalist every day, telling other people's stories, writing your own in a comic book script,
right.
and now you've introduced acting because yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. So, what's that balancing act been like? I mean, when it's very distinct writing styles. between
It's
journalism-
been it just almost feels like I'm putting my hands out into different pies and just tasting them, and they all taste good. But it's not a hard transition, honestly. I think the journalism's probably the most separate thing, but that's my job, that's my career, and I know how to do that fairly well. And then I have my own sort of creative process that I do. I also do poetry and spoken word, things like that. So it's kind of like an outlet for me to get out there and find what's working for me.
Well, you don't get to turn a phrase as often as you like to in your journalistic
Right?
endeavor.
Yeah, there's rules to
There's
journalism,
rules.
but
and so you love the word. You're loving the keyboard, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, if I could only do this, and now you find an outlet for that.
yeah. So I've
There's
basically found numerous outlets for things.
a lot of them. Yeah, very busy. We wish you the very best of luck.
Oh, thank you very
that little
much.
flashy card up there means that we have to shut up now.
That's fine. Yeah.
I don't know why she does that, but she does it. So we're going to thank our partners and our friends. We want to thank Jake Estrada and David Grace over at Space Coast Comic Con for always bringing us in and let us do that. IndieCon, Chuck Fresh, the voice of Sirius XM Radio, thank you so much for having us there. Embellish Effects in Orlando, Florida, our great friend Josh Bauer at J. Bauer Art for all the art that's on our set. We want to thank our good friend B over at Hearts Helping Others of Central Florida. And of course, we want to thank our great friends here at the Foxwood Wine Company for letting us take over a section of the store and just set up a little TV studio, because that was just fun. Yeah. And of course, we want to thank our friend Rick Shea and his team at Famous Faces and Funnies for always supporting the show. Thank you for tuning in and logging on. Remember, we've been hanging out here with journalist, comic creator, actor, an artist coming to anywhere near you, because he just is. He'll be doing something. There'll be comics. He'll be like acting out his comics, probably at spoken word nights. We have no idea what he's going to do next, but he's going to do something great. Josh, thank you so much.
Thank you
for
so
hanging
much
out
here,
with us, guys. Thank you. Remember, stay tuned in, stay logged on, and see who we're hanging with next.